And welcome. I'm Dr. Brown from Elite Community Foundation. I'm a board member and volunteer. Our mission is to reduce poverty, illness, and illiteracy. I want to acknowledge the creator for making this series possible. Hopefully everyone is safe and doing well. I would also like to thank all ECF volunteers who have made this program possible. Our normal format is presentation first, then question and answer. If you have a burning question, you could go ahead and put it in the chat, or you could wait until the end of the presentation to ask your questions. So let's look at what is grief. So grief is a natural reaction to a loss. Particularly, we usually think about it when we think of death. So again, there's some type of bonding or affection with grief. So it's a loss of something that you love or you have an affection for. During grief, the individual may feel or experience a variety of emotion and behavior, such as sadness or loneliness, due to different reasons. One of the things you have to keep in mind is that everyone grieves differently. And there's, again, a variety of reasons for that. But if you understand the signs of grief, practicing self-care or taking care of yourself with support, healing can occur. When does grief occur? Again, we associate it a lot of time with death and dying, but there's a lot of other situations that could cause grief. For example, when a relationship has ended, whether it's a divorce, a breakup, or a separation, and you would be surprised, it doesn't matter. It could be a teenager, it could be a young adult, it could be an older adult. Situations like the pandemic, where you have intense changes, death, dying, loss, a lot of losses, jobs, and so forth, freedom. You can't go where you normally go, depending on where you are in the world and what stage you are in the pandemic. Also, children moving to college, or even going to the military, your loved ones, or even overseas, especially in these areas where there's a lot of conflict or fighting, ongoing wars. Loss of job also could cause grief because, again, your stability. And as we've seen, for example, in the US, there's a lot of homelessness, a lot of displacement. One example of this is in New York City and also in California, which is being featured on the news pretty much every other night. Chronic illness also could cause grief because, again, that could change your entire situation. Medications, testing, a lot of doctors visit, and also you could have a lot of changes in what you can do because of the illness. New diagnosis also could cause grief. Losing a home or even substantial money. I know recently I saw, and this could be from gambling, even the stock market, or even scams. I've seen cases in the news where I think it was a young kid in his 20s. He made a lot of money in the stock market and he lost a lot of money. I think over 100,000, and he ended up committing suicide because of it. So again, you're gonna say, how could somebody do that? Again, everyone handles grief differently and the triggers are different. And also depending on the person's mental state, again, grief can cause substantial issues for people. So next, grief responses. So again, usually people focus on grief responses, the emotional part of it. Like if I ask someone, what is grief? The first thing that will come to mind is crying or anger. Like that's something that's the norm. However, grief has other components to it. So besides an emotional component, there's a physical component, a cognitive or a mental component to it. You have a social component, as well as cultural and spiritual components. So first, let's discuss the emotional responses to grief. Again, one of the most popular ones that people will identify when someone is going through grief is crying. There is also anxiety, sadness, fear, anger, and guilt. And again, it depends on that person or individual. They could experience on an emotional level lower self-esteem. For example, when I gave the example of gambling or being scammed, like they feel like I'm stupid or this should never happen to me.